it is time for the Wednesday Q&A, and first and foremost, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Truck Driver 28. He drew me this picture of the Red Express, which is really cool because I've never had anyone draw a picture of anything I own before, and so that's kind of crazy to see this picture here and be like, hey, that's Red. That's a picture guy drew, and so that was really cool for me. Also, want to give a big thank you to Tanya Spies. I hope I'm saying your name right. She's the first patron to sign up on the Patreon account, and so Tanya, thank you. Really happy to have you on board, and I'm going to send you a little note personally just thanking you for getting on board with Patreon. If you guys would like to help support the show, I do have a Patreon link in the description below. Anything I do on Patreon, any of the income that I get from that and from the channel here, everything is going towards making my trucking movie. So it's not going to go towards like buying me a new Camaro or designer sunglasses or a speed bike or anything like that. Everything I get from the Patreon and the support that I get from the audience, all of that, 100% of that, is going towards getting filmmaking gear to help make this trucking movie that I'm making. So Tanya, thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate it. It just, even though it's a little bit, it goes a long way towards helping with everything we're doing here, because doing this filmmaking stuff, it is really expensive. Everything is just astronomically expensive, and so I really do appreciate the support. So Tanya, thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate it. It just, even though it's a little bit, it goes a long way towards helping with everything we're doing here, because doing this filmmaking stuff, it is really expensive. Everything is just astronomically expensive, and so I really do appreciate the support. Thank you. And now on to the questions. The first question is, Tech Genius Guy asked, hey man, great to see you uploading more. Glad you enjoy it. Friend of mine in class brought up a good question regarding a flatbed like yours. When you go over a large and peaked enough hill, how does the trailer avoid bottoming out? Because here in Quebec and around Mont Tremblant area, there are many illegal truck roads which would bottom out trailers like yours, unless there is some sort of mechanism preventing for that. Thanks for the vid. Alright, here's how that works. My trailer has a hydraulic neck. Now there are two types, well actually three types of RGN trailers. You have a mechanical neck, which does not move, and in a mechanical neck, if you get high centered, you're kind of screwed. It can be a really bad deal. That's why I really don't like to pull a mechanical neck trailer. I've been stuck with a mechanical neck before. It is not fun, especially if you get stuck on railroad tracks. You need to call the railroad right away. Give them the crossing number you're at. You're like, look, I'm stuck here, shut the trains down. And they will stop the trains. It is a big bad deal, and they will also send a wrecker to pull you off the tracks. So be prepared for that. It's not a good situation to be in. Now, with my trailer, I have what is called a non-ground bearing trailer. And there's two types of hydraulic RGNs. You have a ground bearing and a non-ground bearing. The ground bearing is the old style, and what that was is it just had a cylinder that poked down in the neck. And what happened is when you'd hit the support, it would push that cylinder down, and the pad on the bottom of that cylinder would hit the ground, and it would lift the trailer up that way. Now those were not that great because they would do what's called a cookie cutter. If you had a real hot day or something where the asphalt was all warmed up, that thing would just punch right down through the asphalt, leave a nice big hole in it, and mess up somebody's parking lot. So the ground bearing trailers have really gone by the wayside for the non-ground bearing. And so now we've got the non-ground bearing trailers. These don't have any type of support. They've got the cylinders in the neck that lift it up at the neck, and you guys have seen me run that in some of the videos. I don't have any footage uploaded of that right now, and I don't have my trailer with me right now. My trailer's back at the site where I was trying to load today. We had issues with the load there. Otherwise, I just film for you and show you how it works. Maybe in another video I can get around to doing that, but basically I can get at the front of the trailer about 16 inches of daylight underneath the neck there, and then I can jack the rear suspension up a few inches as well. So I can get it up fairly high in the air, and basically the rule of thumb is if it doesn't look like you can go over it, you just don't go over it. Sometimes you have to figure out a different route or something like that, or sometimes doing it at an angle or whatever. It just really depends on the situation and the lay of the land where you are. But I can lift that trailer up a good long ways, and most of the time that's enough to get the job done. I have never been stuck with this trailer. Next question. DDrum705 asks, Nick, do you ever have trouble loading or unloading a piece of equipment onto the deck? Thanks. Yes, sometimes loads, well, what I love about RGN is most of the time the loads are easy, drive on, drive off, get it done, no problems. And then there's sometimes that it turns into an absolute unmitigated cluster. Those times, really not so fun. As a matter of fact, this load I'm on right now turned into one of those. It was supposed to be a quick pull in, they set the thing on at the crane, chain it down, go. I was there at 8 o'clock this morning, rolled out of there at 6:30 this afternoon. We did not have the thing completely loaded on my trailer yet. And so now it's kind of turning into fights saying, okay, can we get some more money, blah, blah, blah. And we're having to figure this out. So hopefully everything on this one works out. Sometimes these loads, they just turn into a problem, or there's other things that can happen. Like, let's say the machine has a massive oil leak and it's just dropping oil everywhere. Well, that turns into a really big problem because you can't have that going down the highway. So you have to have a mechanic come out and fix that, or you have to have it dealt with somehow. You got to throw some absorbent in there to soak it up so it's not leaking out of the machine, or whatever it is you got to do to get that thing delivered. Or sometimes, I mean, if a machine's a problem like that, I've rolled in, I've looked at a machine, and I've just flat out said, I'm not hauling that. And sometimes you have to know when to do that. So most of the time, we don't have a problem, but every once in a while you have one of those loads where everybody's mad, everybody's yelling at each other, and that seems to be the way of the trucking industry. There's a lot less of it in heavy haul, but still the bigger problems we tend to have are when things aren't what was advertised. Like when you show up to get a machine and they say, oh yeah, it was supposed to be 11 foot wide and it turns out to be 12 foot 2. Things like that can cause problems because in some states you start to need pilot cars. Or things being over height too. Over height is probably one of the biggest problems we have, because someone will say something is only supposed to be so tall, and then we get there and it's 6, 8, 10 inches higher. Well, depending on the state, that can actually mean taking a lot longer route, or it can mean having to hire a height pull car. There's all the different things that can come into that. So it's like in, I believe it's Washington State, anything over 14 feet tall, you have to have a height pull. So that really does affect you there, and it can cause a whole lot of problems, so you have to be really cognizant of that. And you really have to be checking what it is you're doing before you put it on the trailer, and after you've got it loaded, you need to get heights on everything, widths. You really need to know what it is you're moving. It's not like you can just throw it in the back of a van and slam the doors and go. And that goes to the same, I mean, even if you're on a flatbed or on a step deck, you really need to know how tall your load is, because you don't want to be that guy on the news that hit a bridge or something. It's just not fun. Next question. Okay, Alex Timmert asked, as an owner-operator, I assume when you bring your truck into a shop for maintenance or repairs, what do you guys look for in a shop and a technician? What things make your experience more pleasurable while in the shop? What kind of shops do you look for? I myself am a technician for a chain of shops across the country and would love to hear some input or stories of shop experience. Thank you for taking the time to read this and hope to hear back from you in your next video. Stay safe out there, Alex. All right, Alex. I'm going to put this out. I do a lot of my own work myself, simply because I'm an owner-operator, and it's more cost-effective for me to do a lot of it myself. There is some stuff that I will farm out, bigger things, like doing brakes, doing tires, stuff like that. I really don't like to do that myself, and yeah, motor work I'll have someone else do, but if it's something I can do on the truck, I do a lot of it myself. When I go into a shop, really I look at the shop and I try and get a feel for the place. I try to see whether or not the employees look like they're happy, because employees that are unhappy aren't really going to do a good job. I look to see how the management interacts with employees, things like that just give me warnings. And also how the management treats me. If they just act like you're just a stupid driver, I'll turn around and go somewhere else, because that's one of the big things. I own my own truck and I own my own trailer. And so if someone wants to treat me like I'm a little peon, know nothing, nobody, I don't need to give them my business. When it comes to a tech, really as a tech, the best thing you can do is communicate with the driver, and don't try and prove how smart you are, because generally I find the guys that try to prove how smart they are to me are always the ones that we have problems with the work that they did. It always seems to be the case. It's usually the guys that don't make a big deal about it are the ones that are the easiest to get along with, never have a problem with. So that kind of gives you an idea there. While I'm in the shop, the big things I really have noticed, if the shop tries to keep me away from my truck while it's being worked on, I have a problem with that. A lot of shops have the don't go out in the shop policy, but I want to be able to know what's going on with my truck. I want to be able to check up on it. I want to be able to get status updates. And I've always kind of had the feeling like if they try to keep you separated from your truck, that they've got something to hide. And if I can't walk up and just talk to the tech for a minute, which I'm not going to stand there all night long and talk to the tech, but if I can't get a reasonable explanation of what's going on, I'm not saying that I should be able to go out there and hound everybody, but if I can't walk up, ask a couple of questions, what's the deal with this, what's the deal with that, how did this look, how did that look, that really causes me a lot of concern, and it will mean generally that I won't go back to that shop, because usually by the time you get to that, you're so far in a job, you won't take it somewhere else. So hopefully that kind of answers your question there. Next question, Lee Hilton asks, out of all the states you have hauled through, which state has the worst mountains, drivers, traffic, and road conditions? Have a great day, and hug Dexter from Mitchell, South Dakota, and keep her between the ditches. Okay, states that... For me, the place that I like going the least is the Northeast. What I find out there is everything out there is small hills. It's not that they're large mountains that have to be overcome. I'd rather run out west any day, because you go over the mountain and then you've got fairly straight level roads between the mountains and you got a lot of wide open spaces. When you get up in the Northeast, like Pennsylvania, Maryland, that whole area there, it just all starts to go to hell right quick and in a hurry. And so what I find is that it's very stressful running that country. The rules out there suck, and I really just try to avoid it as a whole. I really try to stay out of Ohio, Pennsylvania, that whole area up there. I will not go into New York, period. The company knows better to even try and send me to New York. Running out west is a lot better. Actually one of the hardest states for me to drive through, though, is North Dakota, just because it is so damn boring. And South Dakota's tough too. I hate making those two runs just because you're just driving forever. And generally speaking, you are dealing with the wind blowing about 50,000 miles an hour, and it's usually blowing the opposite way of which does you any good. I've had days where the wind is blowing so hard sideways across the road that what it does is it blows all the air out of the radiator, and when it blows all the air out of the radiator, the engine starts to overheat, and you're sitting there running the engine fan on flat ground, and it's still not doing that much good, and your engine still runs warm just because the air is traveling crossways across your truck instead of over the nose, and so it robs you of that cooling power. Alright guys, that is it for this week's Q&A. If you got questions, leave them in the comments below and I will have answers for you. Oh, and if you haven't checked it out yet, check out this video. It's called I'm Gonna Forever Change the Trucking Industry. In this video, what I'm talking about is I'm getting ready to make a movie about the trucking industry. So if you haven't seen that, please go check that out. And I do have some fundraising efforts going on right now. I've got a Patreon, I've got direct through YouTube here, and I've got a GoFundMe set up. And the whole thing that we're doing with this is all about making a movie about the trucking industry, and we're really going to try and help make things better. And if you guys have noticed the theme with my channel here the last couple of weeks, everything going on, I'm really trying to tackle the issues in the trucking industry. And so as this thing comes together, I'm really hoping that this is going to be something that does good for us all. So check out what I'm doing, click on the link here, see this video, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching.